Hi, everyone, and welcome to The X, a podcast from inside Silicon Valley about how experience shapes everything from products to businesses to entire industries. I'm Brian McLean, and I'm here with Demetrius Madrigal.
You gotta be kidding me.
Wow. You realize how many people have read this? I'm up to 2,000 followers since last night.
You're trending, bro.
They're sending me messages. They're goading me into responding.
Don't do that.
Don't do it, man. Don't respond. Don't do it. Take the high road. Respond.
I know, but half the people are saying he's right.
Yeah, but half the people are saying he's wrong. That's the internet.
That's right. Listen to him.
That's social media. You on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm Twitter.
What's your name?
Little Marty. But all the people following me are people I don't even want to hang out during the day. I avoid all. Hey! What are you doing? Don't do it. What are you writing?
Chef, don't. That's not a good idea.
Just listen. I won't send it until we all say it's okay. Why don't you come by again tonight? I got a whole new menu just for you, asshole.
Oh, no.
That's not good.
Give me the phone. Give me the phone.
Don't do it. That's out there now,
This
bro.
happens.
Why would you do
You
that?
can't take that back.
You know what? I threw down the gauntlet.
All right, everyone. That is from the movie Chef, one of my favorite movies, when Jon Favreau, who's a chef, just started using Twitter and really didn't understand what was going on out there. So it's pretty good movie if you haven't seen it yet. So good morning, Dee. How's it going?
Good. I've been following the drama, and it's been interesting to say the least. So I think there's quite a story unfolding as we speak.
Yeah, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the new Instagram Threads, which is basically a Twitter competitor. And I don't think any of us really knew this was coming up to about maybe, 2-3 weeks ago. Like, I didn't hear anything about it at all until there was a post that Mark was doing a talk or something and mentioned that they were creating a competitor. And I was like, oh, wow, I wonder how that's going to play out. And I didn't really think much about it. And then suddenly Threads dropped and it was like a bomb went off, boom, on the social media, because it really, really is shaking things up already. And it's only like day 3 right now.
Yeah, I found, I guess, a news story in TechCrunch that he was planning on releasing Threads sometime in the summer. But I just completely missed it. Like, it was news that just didn't hit very big, and then and nobody knew exactly when it was coming out, and then everything else just kind of played out in this unusual kind of perfect storm.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things. First of all, we did an episode on naming last week. I'm just curious, what do you think of the name Threads?
I think it's a good name. It's something that you could that is on the platform. So it's kind of like, you post threads. There are Twitter threads and things like that. So it's a little derivative, but when it's derivative, it's also helpful because then it reminds people of what they're going to get out of the product.
Yeah,
it's short, it's quick. It's people are talking about like, oh, what's a thread of threads? And like, maybe it's still just a thread. Like math is plural. Math, the plural of math is math.
yeah.
So it's I think it's a good name.
I think so too. Like, honestly, like I heard it and I was like, yeah, that kind of clicks and makes sense. I like that one. I didn't like the shift to Meta. I thought that was a little strange, but it's starting to work for me. But like Threads, I thought was great, and actually it being really short and kind of intentional. It's like Instagram and Threads. It kind of works. I think they kind of nailed it, honestly. And I just want to say a couple things anecdotally before we jump in and actually talk about some of the facts and what's going on and get everyone kind of excited about this big battle. Is that we didn't even talk about doing this episode yet. I had sent you a message and I just said like, hey, D, what do you want to do an episode on this week? There's lots and lots going on. And you said, oh, we have to do it on Threads. And the day that you said that, Threads dropped, I think, for a smaller group of people. And then the very next day, I think it was at like 8:00 at night or something like that. I don't know how it worked out, but everybody got to sign up for it. I already had multiple family members that I noticed were on Instagram mention. It said dropped Twitter, now on Threads, follow. And I was like, whoa, like it's not too often in tech where someone will drop a platform and go to the other one so quickly, especially when it takes sometimes a decade to get a following on a particular platform.
Yeah, I think their timing was
Perfect.
Uncanny. It's like they were, I have a theory about it that we'll talk about, but I think we should kind of set the stage first.
Yeah. So why don't you set the stage about what's been going on with Twitter lately? Because you've had a lot of passionate feelings about it, as you share with me. I feel might feel slightly different than you, just a little bit, because I actually don't. Anyways, why don't you talk about it, and I'll tell you what my theory is.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of Twitter. I've never have been, but I feel like it's kind of it's kind of doubled and tripled down since Elon took over, and everything he seems to do seems to just like it's as though he's intentionally trying to destroy it. So the latest thing he did that set the stage for the meta move that just worked out so perfectly was he a few days ago, I think it was on the July 2nd or July 3rd, he said that he was limiting the amount of posts that people can view to 600 per day, and unverified accounts for unverified accounts, and for paid subscribers, people with the Twitter Blue, they could see 6,000 posts per day. He later increased that to something like 1,000 and 10,000, something like that. But it was still like a very odd move.
Yeah. I thought it was
Um,
strange. I didn't understand it at all. First of all, I didn't understand that the need to want to reduce the amount that you can actually see per day. Like I thought like, well, don't you want eyeballs to expand as far as they possibly can?
yeah, this is a platform that absolutely turns on reach. And if you are artificially limiting the amount of reach that people can have, either for advertisers, so it's limiting the amount of impressions that advertisers can receive, because once people hit their limit, they're going to be off the platform because there's nothing else
Mhm.
for them to do there. And then for anybody who's there to build an audience or to engage with their audience or to just take advantage of that reach or use it as a marketing platform, they are now decreasing the value of the platform. So
Mhm.
it's there. I can't really see the upside for it, except that it like decreases the value proposition of the platform fairly significantly.
I think the upside is looking at financials. I think they probably looked at it and said like, hey, for whatever reason, I know you have a kind of a speculation about why this happened, but is that it
Hmm.
had something to do with finances, with the amount of bandwidth or
Yeah.
something, right?
So there's a lot of speculation. Nobody really knows for sure, other than maybe Elon and maybe not even him. So the stated reason is because people are scraping Twitter too aggressively.
What does that even
So
mean?
I guess I mean, this seems like an API thing. I guess there are people can write scripts that just manually scrape it, or
Uh-huh.
not manually, but like they use automation that doesn't use an API. Uh, but I mean, this doesn't seem new. This is something that's always that's always happened. I've known plenty of people who were like, "Oh, I've got this project. I'm scraping Twitter to figure out like when people are talking about the flu or things like that,
Hmm.
in order to try to get some kind of information about whatever their hypothesis is." But it's like plenty of academics are doing this in order to just get enough to see kind of where things are happening or why things are happening or anything like that. So scraping Twitter has not been a big issue up to this point, and it suddenly is.
Yeah, would an example be? I met this woman at a conference one time, and she was an academic, and she was doing this test to see if she can track the flu. And
Hmm.
what she did is they scraped Twitter to find out how many people in each city, each region, for example, mentioned "I feel sick today" or "I'm not feeling well," and then did like a heat map to show the flow of sickness. Now it wasn't, and they tried to link flu to it and that kind of stuff. Would that be something like that, where they're basically scraping all the accounts to kind of see what people are saying?
I assume so. Maybe he saw this coming and thought that somehow Meta scraping Twitter somehow made this possible, and if he stopped
Hmm.
Meta from scraping Twitter, then he could avoid this somehow. I have no idea. And it doesn't compute. It's just like, hey, my toe's hurting, so I'm going to cut it off. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense at all. The Some things that I've seen floating around are apparently Twitter's had issues paying their hosting fees to Google Cloud.
Hmm.
At some point, they stopped paying them, and there was a due date. It was July 1st or June 30th, something around there, to actually start paying them again. My understanding is it did start paying them. Another possibility is that the reduction in staff, especially their IT people, making it difficult to maintain the platform at scale. They just couldn't they just couldn't handle the traffic anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, which might be the most likely, in the most cynical sense, is that it's just an attempt to further monetize the platform and make it subscriber only,
Yeah.
so that it becomes more of a freemium thing. But the thing that doesn't make sense about that is that if why not make the subscribed users unlimited? Unless he's trying to say that the subscribed users are somehow scraping the platform in a poor way, or they just don't have a good way to identify which subscribed users are scraping the platform, which seems odd, and then limit those users. So
Yeah.
it
You know,
is an
you know what's
odd,
really
odd.
interesting about all of this is that like when you said like, oh, maybe he's not paying his hosting fees at Google Cloud, right? Because we know that he's not paying the real estate costs of the real estate they're
Mm-hmm.
using in San Francisco and things like that. Is that two of his closest friends are the founders of Google? And
Mm-hmm.
how awkward is that conversation, right? I was thinking about this the other day. You own Google, D, and I own Twitter. And I'm like, not going to call you or text you and be like, hey, I'm running out of money. Like, I need you guys to float me. And then they just do it because they're friends, or like, what are those back of the restaurant conversations, going on, right? Of like,
That's a good question.
how does that all float out when it's like the two owners of the companies are like super close friends, and he stays basically at Sergey's, I think it's Sergey's, or maybe it's the other founder's house, like all the time, like just flies in, stays at his estate, and then just flies home. So he doesn't even have a house here. So it's like, it's just an awkward, weird moment where you're
Yeah.
like,
Well,
how does this all play out?
Google is not a private company like Twitter is. So
Yeah,
they cannot just decide that they're not going to charge them. I think this said that they owed them $1 billion.
Oy,
I think I think if they did that, they absolutely exposed themselves to legal action from their shareholders. So
true.
I,
That's true.
I
Yeah,
I think that's kind of out of their hands, especially when it gets into the news the way that it has.
yeah,
Like, they have to do something.
yeah.
The
No,
amount of
that,
money
that
that's
makes
involved is
that makes
ridiculous.
sense. I mean, he created, with all this chaos going on with Twitter, and to be fair, there's chaos before as well. People,
Mhm.
had there different type of chaos at Twitter. It's always been chaos, right?
It's new chaos.
It's just new chaos, right? Is that it created like this weird vacuum of like all these companies trying to create basically their own versions of Twitter. And one of the things that has bothered me ever since that started was that I look around and I see like 5 or 6 major companies in Silicon Valley, and those 5 or 6 big companies, Meta, Microsoft, well, Microsoft is mostly in Washington, but like Microsoft, Google, people like that, if they do it right, they can kind of squash most of the competition when trying to create spin-offs of different things like social, because of the fact that they already have this existing massive user base.
Yeah.
So to hear that all these smaller ones, and Twitter's quite small actually in the grand scheme of things, are starting to pop up and get 100,000 here, 200,000 here, 300,000 here, just tells me that there's a big competitor about to jump in, which sounds like it might be Threads, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to just suck all of those users up, or you'll start seeing kind of acquisition season begin, and all these smaller ones will start getting purchased because they need the engineering talent.
Or
So,
they consolidate the user bases.
or they consolidate user bases, right? So what are some of the ones that have been kind of popping up lately that are getting some attention?
So I think when Elon, well, Twitter has been a dying platform for quite some time, and then Elon took it over. It was predicted even before he acquired it to be losing users over the next couple of years. I think that's kind of accelerated it. And then one of the things that really really set the stage for this, that everybody else, and we'll talk about that right now, took advantage of, is it seems as though user satisfaction with Twitter hit a all-time low. Um, and I saw plenty of people who were Twitter Blue subscribers, who were Elon Musk fans, who were just saying this is completely unacceptable. This can't happen.
Yeah.
So in the wake of that, we've known for a while about Mastodon, which was a Web3 uh, social platform. And I think that my experience with Mastodon is just too complex. Like, it's not a single gathering space. Everything is kind of split out, and then you have to sign up for like a waiting list for some of them in order to get on. But they're
Hmm.
still over close to 2 million users. since this happened on since Elon announced this new policy, Spill, a company founded by former Twitter employees, they got 100,000 signups in private beta over a couple days. That included some celebrities like Questlove and Lizzo.
Okay.
Blue Sky, which is also Web3, and that I think is founded by Jack Dorsey. They nearly doubled their users from 130K to 240K,
Yeah.
and this was a little while ago. This isn't even up to date numbers anymore. It could still be going up. Post, which is a social media platform that focuses on actual news,
Mm-hmm.
which I saw. I'm thinking to myself, oh, I should take a look at that because what I'm looking for mostly is news.
Yeah.
It's up 4 times in daily active users and 10 times in signups. And this is all before Threads got released.
Yeah.
All this happened before Threads, anybody even knew Threads was coming out, I think.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because like I'm not a super fan of social media in general.
Mhm.
I just don't feel like I go on and suddenly like my day is better, or, things come great out of it. It is cool for news stuff. I've always kind of thought that was neat. Like you instantly can have like someone posts, oh, this is going on, this train is down. This is, there's like little use cases within it. But I look at all these and I go, do we really need more of these social media companies? And what happens when you have 5 or 6 of them and they all have 200,000 users each, right? Like, are they
Yeah.
like what some of the VCs call the Walking Dead companies, meaning that they just keep chugging along, but they never really grow and they just kind of keep their user base and it just becomes a small company that lives on forever? Or do you think that all these companies are just basically lining themselves up for acquisition because the talent behind building these social companies is what the bigger companies actually really need. They don't need the users as much. Like if you said like, I want to
Mhm.
buy your company because it has 100,000 users, it's like, like what's that really going to do for you if only 10% of them transfer over, right? But if you can grab all of that engineering talent and bring them in-house, you can build a powerhouse company that really competes with the Twitters of the world or whoever is the leader at the time. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now with the meta drop, right?
Yeah. I think that there is a tendency within social for consolidation. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of the nature of the value proposition. So, you and I are both not huge consumers of social media. I used to be more engaged, but then at some point I felt like the experience just started degrading and getting worse. So I found other ways to occupy my time. But there absolutely is a value proposition there that is needed by quite a few people. Whether it's ultimately just about connecting people, and those could be people who know each other but are geographically separated, or there could be people who are maybe celebrities connecting with their fans. But there's definitely something there, and I think that what ends up happening is that there's ultimately two kinds. One is something like Reddit, where everything becomes focused on a single topic, so people can talk about whatever that topic is.
Uh-huh.
The other is the Twitter based style, where there's just like a single kind of meeting place, and everybody kind of has this simultaneous conversation at the same time. So I think that makes sense for people to kind of consolidate into one. I think some of these smaller companies, I think that some of them will get acquired, some of them will probably just go away. But it does make sense that like if it, and you're right about the users, because if someone's got like 100 200K, that's kind of this uncanny valley where it's not enough to really maintain the content on the platform. uh, but it's also, it's not nothing. So the other thing is that how many of them are already signed up for Threads or Twitter because they are already engaged in that type of platform. So it is, I think there's going to end up being one winner, and
Yeah.
some of these will hang around, and some of them won't, and some of them will get acquired. But we'll
Yeah.
see.
No, I actually think that Snap might get acquired. I was thinking about just the engineering talent and the people over at Snap and kind of what they're trying to do, and they're pretty innovative when with some of the features that they try out and stuff like that. It almost seems like if Snap partnered with one of these companies, even Twitter, not saying they should do that, but like if they did, that would be like the best competitor, for example, to a Meta who has literally billions of existing users, right? Like it's going to be really hard to fight off that. But let's pause there for a second. Let's talk about Meta. Let's talk about Threads and what just happened, because I think that's the most exciting part about this. So I did sign up for Threads, and I have to tell you, it was one of the smoothest UX experiences I've ever had on anything.
Yeah.
It was shockingly easy to do. It was like 4 clicks, automatically ported everything, downloaded the app, boom, done. Here we are, like shockingly easy. And it doesn't look as in the moment, it doesn't look as like aggressive. And I wonder if that's because the UI, it has that Instagram UI, so it feels more friendly and picture oriented, even though it's not, it's text based.
Hmm.
So we'll see how it unfolds. But like coming into it, it doesn't feel as threatening, strangely. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that the sign up flow, they must have tested this. They know what they're doing. I mean, Instagram or Meta as a company has a lot of experience with this. So the sign up flow was unbelievably easy. It was one of those things where I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I have no notes. This is just change nothing. You're all set.
Yep.
I think they did something very smart in within that, and it's actually one of the times where I think that them changing their name from Facebook to Meta is actually paying off a bit.
Hmm.
Even though I don't love the name Meta because it's kind of meaningless, but the you sign up through Instagram, you don't sign up through Facebook.
Yep.
And I think that was very smart. And I think the reason why that is very smart is because Facebook feels to me like kind of a dying platform. It feels to me like a place for boomers. It feels to me like a place that's very contentious and kind of unfortunate. And Instagram feels like something that, well, I have issues with Instagram also. Just feels a lot better to me than Facebook, even though I
Well,
almost never look at Facebook anymore. I still look at Instagram usually once a day or so at a minimum,
yeah,
usually.
yeah. And honestly, I know a ton of people that canceled their Facebook account 5, 6, 7 years ago, like including
Mhm.
myself, and still use Instagram. I still follow my
Yeah.
friends, post all these cool surfing videos on there. They're always sending me messages saying, hey, check out my surfing video or whatever it is. And I still enjoy the platform. I think that Reels has been taking off. It's kind of like a nice competitor to um,
TikTok.
TikTok and some of the others. And it doesn't feel aggressive. It doesn't serve me anything aggressive. It serves me kind of interesting things.
Hmm.
And then suddenly Threads pops in, and if they can walk the line, and I'm not a huge fan of Meta, the big company in general. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't think all this stuff is really good for people. I don't think they should be on it all the time. I'm not on it all the time. I do find a little bit of joy in some of the areas. Like I said, like you said, like Facebook is really aggressive, and I got rid of it because of that a long time ago.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that they are walking the line here of like creating something that's potentially like, a little bit more friendly, right? And a
Yeah.
little less aggressive. And also too, the people that you're following on Threads or people that you're already following on Instagram, and I have curated those very specifically.
Yes.
So I'm only following people that post things that are interesting to me in the maker community or surfing or I like all this van life stuff and all these interesting topics that I like. And I don't get any creepy stuff because I don't follow those people. So if the threads are connected with them, then that would be kind of cool to see what they have to say. So I feel differently about it. Now, when you look at it over time, it's hard because if you want to grow it to massive, massive, massive adoption, that's where you kind of lose control of the friendliness, and it
Yeah.
gets a little bit weird.
So I think that was very smart. And I think like tying it to Instagram, which is a place which is relatively friendly within the social space. There's still some abuse, and I see some things every now and then where somebody posts something and somebody gets angry at them for believing whatever. Um, but it's way better than Facebook, and it's way better than Twitter. So it's something that sets the tone. And I think that tone is important. Zuckerberg came out and he made a statement that Threads is intended to be a friendly place. Uh, and setting that tone and making the choice to actually probably slow their initial growth because they would probably have more signups if they did it through Facebook also. But by limiting that, I think that it ends up being they slow their growth in order to set a more friendly tone.
Yes. I 100% agree with that. And actually, that is That's the way to do it when you have money. So what
Yeah.
happens is when you're a smaller company, as probably all of our listeners know, you're trying to get rapid growth as fast as possible because you need to raise a round, or you're running out of money, or you got to pay that. Well, guess what? Meta doesn't have that problem. I think their stock has gone 4x in the last 12 months. They have an existing user base of I heard almost 3 billion users on Instagram.
Yeah.
So imagine if they move over a percentage of those, how big it'll be. It'll be massively bigger than Twitter within the next 12 months.
Yeah, and this is kind of what they needed because they were burning money with their metaverse attempt, I guess, and their stock had dropped a fair amount since uh, pre-pandemic numbers. But these threads, they're doing really well so far. They don't, even though their stock price is down, their revenue is doing just fine, and a lot of the poor choices that companies make, including Facebook, when it came to the way how it led up to these Cambridge Analytica problems and targeting goose and stuff, comes from a place of economic insecurity where they feel desperate and they need to do something in order to turn their numbers around, turn their stock around. If people are willing to take the risk, these companies are willing to take risk and do things the right way, then things will tend to work out a little bit better. Now, on the other side of things, Elon Musk responded to the friendly place thing, and this is telling. He said he would prefer to be attacked by strangers on Twitter to false happiness on Instagram, which is kind of, again, telling. That is like he thinks that there's authenticity in the aggression and toxicity. I don't think so. I think that a lot of that is manufactured because people are trying to find ways in order to get attention. But he's kind of making an argument against civility in society.
Absolutely. But, I know where this comes from. I've watched a lot of interviews with Elon, and he has this one little pet peeve of his, which is he feels like Instagram people only frame up the best part of their life. And he feels like it's fake, and that people that do that are making everyone else feel annoyed and insecure. Now, it seems weird coming from him, considering that Twitter is like aggressive and angry and all this kind of stuff. But I know that that's a pet peeve because I've heard it on multiple interviews over years that it annoys him that happens. And for whatever reason, it causes irritability. And so when I saw this, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what he's been saying for a long time.
Sure. I think from just a economic and business standpoint, you can point to companies like Disney and uh, and Pixar and plenty of others who are like just indicate that what, sometimes putting out a positive message to the world is economically viable.
Well, I mean, it's the Ted Lasso, right? It's like
Yes.
everything prior to Ted Lasso was about explosions and people dying, and like I like to the point where like you and I had a conversation. And I was like, I need to watch things that are more peaceful, make me laugh. Like I'm tired of
Mhm.
all these like post-apocalyptic worlds and all this kind of stuff. They're great, but they like depressing, right? Like you're done with it and you're just like scared, or like I told somebody the other day, I don't want to be scared going to bed anymore. I want to laugh. And that was prior to Ted Lasso. Then suddenly Ted Lasso comes out, which is the antidote of that, right? And it's like this
Mhm.
huge, massive explosion of everybody loves it, and it's like this super positive, good message kind of show that recently wrapped. And it's like, well, you know what? If that's the direction things are going, great. And if Meta can thread that fine line of making it friendly and not getting it out of control, honestly, they'll win this. They will be the market leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they're kind of setting themselves up for that, and part of that is that Elon just teed it up for them so perfectly. Like I can't imagine. It's almost as though I have this theory. I mentioned it. I was going to mention this theory, and I think this. I'll go ahead and mention it now. I think they were waiting. I think they were waiting for Elon to have a high profile like mess up.
Yeah.
To put it nicely, they were waiting for him to do something stupid, which he did, and then they launched in the middle of it. And I think they were waiting with their fingers on a trigger, waiting for it to happen, and then he did it, and they pulled the trigger, and here we are.
Well, that kind of coincides with their potential MMA match, right?
Yeah. Well, they canceled that. Um, that just seemed dumb. There was another. Again, both of these founders are somewhat problematic, and that whole like MMA match thing just very much seemed like a PR horse and pony show.
Oh yeah, but
So
I just want to be clear. If either one of them are listening to our podcast, it would be the worst thing you can do for your personal reputation ever if you guys get into a cage together. It's embarrassing, and it's gross. Like you and I did martial arts for 20 years. We
yeah,
fought on the floor. We've done all kinds of stuff for 20 combined, probably 20. Wait, no, mine was 17 combined years. Yours is like 20. Let me tell you, like watching those two guys go at it is just gross. I just don't think it should happen. I wouldn't do it.
yeah,
I think it's embarrassing. I think one of them's going to get hurt for sure. I think Mark would win. I don't think that
yeah.
Elon has what it takes to get there unless he's like starts training pretty heavily with some good fighters. But like, why would you even go down that route, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's about like a PR stunt. I thought this will never happen. Other people were like, "Oh my god, it's totally going to happen," and I'm like, "No, it's not." Like, neither one of them wants to get hurt. They're running big companies. Do you even think that the board of directors for these companies and the shareholders would want these two fighting in a cage match where one of them could potentially, I don't know, get hurt so bad that they are, can't work or something like that? Do you really think that that's what they want? No.
Well,
Ridiculous.
I don't think they're really doing a whole lot of actual hands-on work, to be honest. Either one of them. There. The reality is that there's nothing good can come from this. If somebody who starts training in their 40s, there's no way you're going to look good fighting in front of people. Like it just doesn't happen. Like if you started in your, I mean, there's a reason why every successful fighter out there basically started at training in their teens or younger, and most of them come from a place of poverty, and that a lot of times ingrains a motivation and a toughness to them. I mean, just this is like the entire theme of Rocky 3, right? You lost
Yep.
the hunger. They're not hungry.
Yep.
They're going to get in there. They're going to look sloppy. They're going to forget their training. They're going to get tired and winded. Best case scenario is that somebody actually gets a minor injury so they can talk about like, oh, that's too bad we couldn't do more.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just bad, and they shouldn't do it. And I'm glad that it got canceled. I was groaning internally when they said they would, and I'm someone who's watched boxing almost my entire life, so
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
it's just
it's weird, and I didn't like. I personally didn't like it. I don't want tech heading in that direction. I mean, I might just be a traditionalist, but like when I first started in tech, I was only 16 years old, and it was cool to see really, really, really intelligent people come together in a room and try to build stuff.
yes,
And the last thing I wanted to do is see Waz and those guys get out and do an MMA fight right in the middle of a cage,
yeah.
right? Like, come on, like.
Bill Gates and Laws, or maybe it would be Balmer and Waz or something like that. Who
Yeah, but
knows?
I mean, if you think about it, D, like I don't mind those guys fighting it out in the courtroom. I don't mind if those guys are fighting it out at conferences. I'm better, you're better, I'm better, I'm better. But that's what Silicon Valley is all about. It's about building stuff and fighting for position and trying to build the most amazing technology. This just kind of goes in a weird direction.
Although I will say I will absolutely tune in to watch either one of them fight Deontay Wilder.
Yeah. Well, I actually saw some of the videos of them actually training. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw them, but they were training in Texas, and um, Mark looked pretty good, like as a beginner. Like
how did
yeah, it was not bad.
how did Mark look compared to like a nearly 60-year-old Mike Tyson?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not gonna really touch that. I mean, and I'll tell you why, because I think people like Mike Tyson and stuff have that, what is it called, like institutional muscle and institutional knowledge. Like they can drop right back into their discipline of
Yeah,
how things work and how you're supposed to move and how you're supposed to train. And they can really start to look like they did when they were younger. But even he's said
yeah,
on podcasts, like it hurts. Like he's in
sure.
pain after those boxing matches where he does them for charity and stuff.
That's what you're supposed to be, even if it's for charity. Like that's the nature of the experience. And Mike Tyson is it's a little unfair because he's an absolute savant. He's a
Yeah.
genius when it comes to boxing. Whatever you think about his capabilities or mental ability outside of boxing, you get him talking about boxing or in the boxing ring or just practicing or training. he's a legend for a reason.
Yeah.
And these
Well,
guys will never be that.
no, I don't think so either. And I know we're a little off topic here, so we'll get back on topic. But you and I could do a
Oh,
whole fight segment since we were in this
we
area
could.
for so long.
So one thing I'll mention that's I think a good segue back from the fight
Yeah.
is that Elon's lawyer sent Meta a threat to sue. It was a cease and desist, but it wasn't clear what the cease and desist was. They're claiming that they have stolen trade secrets, and including documents and devices that former Twitter employees took with them, which is everybody knew that when Elon aggressively laid off a lot of the most valuable people within the company, that they were going to go out and get jobs with his competitors.
Sure.
Somehow, I don't. He either didn't care or he didn't know somehow. But now they're threatening to sue, and this seems like number one. It was interesting to me that it was not sent by a legal representative for Twitter itself. It was Elon's personal lawyer.
Yeah, that was a little bit strange. And I wonder if as you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm running quote unquote, running 5 companies, like he can't have his hands in everything, that suddenly you have this like body that supports you, lawyers and other things that are outside of one company and more broader looking at all the companies. But that seems weird too, because these are like, well, they're private actually. So he could do kind of whatever he wants with that, I think. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it felt a little odd to me that it didn't come from like legal at Twitter, but who knows? I mean, the legal team might
Yeah.
have been gutted.
Well, just that's the other thing that's definitely possible, because somebody pointed out that I don't entirely know it's true, but people claiming to be former Twitter employees said that Elon did not pay most of the employees that he laid off, did not pay their severance, and so they were thousands of employees who had been laid off were taking him to arbitration, and he was not paying their arbitration company. So that arbitration company was then encouraging them to sue.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is all over a non-compete clause, then number one, non-competes are not enforceable within the state of California. And number two, it is the biggest jerk move I can think of to lay somebody off and then on top of that try to keep them from finding another job in order to support themselves and their family.
Yeah, that's not legal. This has been challenged in court multiple times over the last couple of decades. And that's, so all that stuff is going to get worked out in court for sure, because that other companies have tried doing that stuff and it didn't pan out.
Yeah, it seems like an empty threat. Like they didn't file suit. They sent a cease and desist letter, and it wasn't clear even what to cease and what to desist.
Yeah. Well, I think what it was is this. They felt like they had to put out a fight because they probably knew that this was going to go big and go quick, meaning like the user base was going to grow. I mean, where are we at as of this podcast right now? How many millions of people are now on Threads?
70 million. And
70
as of
million.
the time of this recording, it's been, I think, less than 48 hours, maybe. So it's growing fast and it's continued to do so. And I don't think that there's anything else that Twitter or Elon can do. I think that they are painted in a corner. They just have to let this normally what you would do is like, okay, we knew this was coming, and we're going to announce a new killer feature that's going to make you want to stay on Twitter rather than go over to the competitor. This is what plenty of other companies do when something like this happens, right? But they don't. I don't think they have that. I think they're stuck.
So I was looking at the features on there. I found that on Threads you can post directly to Twitter, and I find that kind of a shot of the bow, right? Because obviously Twitter will turn that off at some point.
If they can, I don't know if they have the staff in order to change the API.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but like, it's interesting that you can do that. I mean, do you think that was a move from Mark to kind of say, hey, you're going to start seeing all these threads posted on Twitter, which will pull Twitter users over to Threads? Is that why he did it, or do you think he's?
I don't even know if that came from Mark. That was probably just. I imagine it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was just an interaction designer who looked at it and said, "Well, why wouldn't we do this? Of course we would do this. It's something that's available that Twitter's API supports, so we're going to take advantage of it."
Yeah, it'll get turned off. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure about that. But I'll tell you, what my prediction is for Twitter, because I was thinking about this at the 30,000 foot view. I think Elon only has a couple of options here. Number one is either the user base is going to turn around because he's going to do something spectacular, right? Like he's done some pretty spectacular things with Tesla, but it's a very different ballgame when you're like convincing other car companies to use your charging ports and working with large manufacturer. It's just very different than this. But I look at it and I go, okay, there's that option, which I think is a very, very slight likelihood that that's going to happen. I think a lot of features have been tested on Twitter and none of them have really stuck that grew the base over the years, like before he even came along, right? Number two is Twitter as a social company starts to fade over time and he turns it into the financial company that he wanted. So I keep hearing these reports that he really badly wants to take, the X.com, the original idea he had when he was ousted as CEO of PayPal, because he wanted to be the PayPal CEO and they didn't let him or something. Is to take those ideas, bring them into Twitter, and Twitter becomes something completely different. And over the course of the next 3 years or so, you see that user base dwindle, but then you see a number of people signing up to use it as some sort of payment platform. That's one idea. The third idea is he just writes it off. He just slowly but surely sells Tesla stock because it keeps going up and up and up and up. It's up a lot over the last 2 months. And he just keeps selling and selling and selling. He pays all of his debt off to these big people who gave him money to support him. And then he writes down Twitter and it's gone. Or he sells it for pennies on the dollar, says goodbye, and just focuses on the rest of his companies. Because ultimately, you and I know this from a psychology standpoint. When people are really motivated to do something, they really like something, they dig in, they work hard, they're thinking about it all the time, they're excited about it. Everything he talks about and has for the last 2 decades or however long SpaceX has been around, I think it's 2003 or something, is always about space and it's always about sustainability and Tesla. I think that those are his babies. I think those things that matter the most to him. And Twitter was purchased because he just, I don't know, went crazy one night and said he was going to do it and then got stuck doing it. I don't think he cares. I think he can write it down, say goodbye to it. We'll all forget about Twitter 5 years from now, and he'll still be focusing on SpaceX and Tesla. And that's it. Like,
Yeah.
and Tesla's division of artificial intelligence, which he's building, which is growing, and apparently they're doing some cool stuff. So I feel like that's where his heart is, and he just wants to get rid of this thing. But he can't get rid of it because of people look at him and go, "Oh, you're Elon. You're supposed to save this thing." So he's caught. He's caught, and he has to figure something out.
I don't think there's a good. Let me ask you a question. If he came out with if he turned Twitter into a financial platform, would you trust Elon and Twitter with your financial information?
I don't so this is a very interesting thing about me. I don't like his behavior, social behavior, the way he acts, but I do look at things like what he did to create the companies like SpaceX, stuff like that. And I do think from an engineering standpoint, he does build good things. Like he does a great job. He's built bigger companies than we have. He's built bigger companies than other people. I don't distrust that they would be able to like securely protect my money, but I don't see any reason why I need it. Like Stripe exists
Yeah.
because the world uses Stripe and trusts Stripe. That's what they do, right? All of these institutions that exist have been built on brand. Right now, the Twitter brand is being eroded. So I don't see a need to go, oh, now I need another financial tool and I'm going to use the Twitter one. But deep down, do I distrust his ability to engineer something that's secure and safe? No, I think he could do it if he wanted to.
I don't. I actually don't. After seeing what he's done with Twitter, I don't think that he can. I think that he has some capabilities, and he's also had some smart partners previously when working on PayPal. But I also think that PayPal was a lifetime ago, so
Yeah.
things have changed. I think that people don't want their social platform to be their economic, their financial tool. They just don't want it. That's not what it's for.
Yeah.
So I think him even entertaining trying to turn that ship rather than just buying some financial startup and working with them in order to execute his ideas. I think it's a total misfire. I think that the mismanagement, I think that his behavior, I think it's turned everybody off. I don't trust him from a technical standpoint after what I'm seeing him do with Twitter. But I also feel like, you know what, we're probably talking a little bit too much about Elon and Twitter. And I think the story here is really about threads.
Yeah, it is.
And my prediction for Twitter is that within a year, maybe two, they're going to be Parler. They're going to have a couple 100,000 users who are dedicated Elon Musk fans and are probably, pretty far right, because that seems to be kind of what he's appealing to now, even though it's probably hurting his sales for a company like Tesla. And I think that it is kind of going to be like a tiny platform within a year or two,
Yeah.
because I don't think, let me ask you, it within the social media space, what do you think Twitter can do to counter what Threads is doing and keep people on the platform, or bring them back?
I honestly don't have any options for you.
Yeah.
I look at it and I believe the brand has been eroded. I believe that people have been looking for an out for a decade. I think
Mm-hmm.
that everything I'm reading, I don't know this for sure, but everything I'm reading is that there's a lot more hate and stuff going on there than before, and people are getting fed up over it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a Ted Lasso. I do feel like I don't look at Meta as Ted Lasso, but I look at it as like this could be the antidote to what everyone's been looking for.
Yeah, I think people are. I mean, I don't know that Threads is going to be this the silver bullet solution. It's going to solve toxicity on social media, but I feel as though the experience on Twitter, ultimately the experience, the value proposition, and the experience on Twitter is tumbling down. And I don't think that Elon understands what the problem is. And the problem is ultimately the experience is so bad that what you go on there and you experience is hate. And I don't think people want to experience it. And it's absolutely true that there's hate in the world, but I don't think people want to believe that humanity is inherently hateful, and they don't want to be confronted with it constantly. They
No,
want to
I don't
believe
think
that there's
so either.
goodness.
I also think that we dealt with a lot of this for a long time. And I think people are getting tired of it. This was even based on like the prediction I made the other day when I was saying that, all this online stuff, I think people are getting tired of it and they want to get outside and do physical things. And you're seeing that already, right? You've said it before. People just want to
Mhm.
travel and get away and do the I don't think we want to go back into the hole. And so what I think Instagram is trying to do with Threads is they're trying to say, don't go back in the hole, just lightly engage with people and engage with the
Yeah.
people that you want to engage with. And it might
I
work.
think there's going to be 150 million people on it by Monday.
Well,
It's 70 million now. It's adding
yeah.
almost 40 million a day.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
Twitter
always
has
those.
Instagram has 2 billion users that they have outreach on.
Yeah, well, usually you have a bump, right? And then the bump levels off, and then you have kind of like this regular chunk. So you don't
I
think that
think
we've even leveled off yet?
I think it'll level off at the end of next week. I think by the end of at a minimum, I think it's going to keep building through the next week or two. The bump might continue through the end of July. I think by the end of next week, in their second week of operation, I think they could surpass Twitter's user base. I
You,
think it's entirely possible. I think because of and again, it's almost, I think that Zuck needs to send Elon like a gift basket or something, because if they had, if he had never bought Twitter and Zuckerberg and Meta had released Threads, it would have never have received the reaction that it's getting. There's
no, I
no
don't
way.
think so. I think the timing was absolutely perfect, and we know in Silicon Valley, timing is everything. It really is. Like if you hit something right when people are thinking they want it or they could need it, and you have a
Hmm.
good product at the right time, it just kind of takes off. I mean, I remember the first time I used Twitter, for example, was like 2007. I was at the D Young Museum in San Francisco, and I was like, "Oh, what's this Twitter thing I was hearing about?" So I started taking pictures of little things at the D Young and writing something, and then no one ever wrote back to me because there was no one following me, and I didn't understand what that even meant. But it was
Yeah,
like going from 2007 to here we are now. It's like, it could, like you said, it could be almost gone or be a tiny
yeah.
little platform within 3 years. But, with that said, what do you think, as we kind of wrap this up, what do you think are the challenges for Threads as it moves forward? Because it's going to have challenges like
Mhm.
every other social platform.
I think you basically look at Twitter and you see there that what the challenges are, because Twitter has it's the same platform. It's basically a copy, which it's Meta and Instagram, they've been known for copying other platforms, going all the way back to MySpace. But that's the world we live in.
Yep.
Challenge is competition. So I think number one is profitability for that independent platform. The nice thing for Threads is they're not entirely, or for Metas, they're not entirely dependent on Threads to be profitable on its own. It can be a loss leader and drive engagement for their other platforms. The other is content moderation and just the tone of the platform. Let's see if it can maintain the kind of friendliness that it has in this honeymoon phase. I think that's ultimately the biggest challenge, because that's, again, that takes us back to the experience.
Yeah.
What kind of experience are people having on this platform? I think the other thing is kind of content moderation and kind of the tone of it. I think Zuckerberg and Meta have shown that they understand that what people want is a positive experience and not just be kind of in an outrage machine. And I think that we've gotten to the point where Twitter is now, some of the outrage on there is fake in order to kind of get attention, because
Yeah.
that's the easy way to stand out. And
Yeah.
if they are kind of have an algorithm on Threads that they don't have on Facebook, where they're emphasizing likes maybe over comments, because the comments tend to get toxic and the likes are pretty much positive, then they can help to fix that problem.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that profitability is not a huge concern right now. Content moderation is everything. But when it comes down to it, I think it's about reputation. This is a pivot for Meta. If Meta can clean up its reputation, focus on content moderation, they can pull out of this the way that Microsoft did when people started to look at Microsoft as the devil and like, we hate it and it's an evil company, to the company it is today, where it's beloved and people like it and they really fly underneath the radar and don't have any major issues. So I think that's kind of where they're going to try to go. And ultimately, I think it's going to be super interesting to see how this unfolds. Well, D, I think this is a wrap for today. This was super exciting. We'll jump into this and talk about it again probably next week or the week after if we need to. But thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to listen to us. We really appreciate it. As we mentioned, we now post our updates, video versions of the podcast, and everything on YouTube at the X Podcast. So please go to YouTube, subscribe, and leave a review or comment. We read all of them and we really appreciate it. So we will see you all next week.